Hey guys, Target here and welcome to another episode of Design and Manage, a City Skylines and Modded Let's Play series. Today we are going to build something big. We are going to completely rework our industrial district. Stay tuned! So the city has been developing quite nicely in the last couple of videos, and we now have a lot of population and a lot of money to burn, which I think we can use to further expand our city. So when we've started playing this city, I've built this modest industrial layout, which is very basic and very simple. It's simply a grid that is connected in a very simple way to the main highway connection. I've built it here because I pretty much had no choice. I only had one available tile to start my city in, so I had to place it here mandatorily. However, now that we have a lot more tiles available and we also have a lot of money in the bank, we can invest in a more robust industrial system that is able to handle high volumes of traffic. Also, I will want to use this zone to zone some more residential and commercial, so the industry cannot be here at all. I have been thinking about where I want to build this new industrial sector, and I think I'm gonna build it right about over here in this area. It is in the outskirts of the map, so citizens will not be bothered by the noise and ground pollution that the industry generates. It is very close to the main highway, and it also has a rail network where we can put some cargo train stations. It's also going to be pretty close to our fishing industry, which is going to be in this shoreline over here. And by having both types of industry very close to each other, it will facilitate the transport of raw materials from the fishing industry to the generic industry to produce finalized goods. So I think we can proceed with the plan. So what I'm gonna do is simply buy this additional tile, and we can now start building something here. Now that we have the tile unlocked, we can start building our layout. I predict that it's going to take me quite a bit of time, so I'm going to turn it into a time lapse and I'm going to commentate what I'm doing. So without further ado, let's go. Okay guys, what you're seeing now is roughly 3 hours of footage that is going to be converted into a time-lapse that is hopefully not that long. I'm gonna try not to cut much of my mistakes because I know that some of you like to see them, but for the sake of content I'm gonna try to keep this time-lapse as entertaining as possible, while not speeding it up too much so that you cannot understand what's going on. Okay, so first and foremost I've started with the interchange. That is of course the initial part of the process in building an industrial layout, especially when it is so far away from the city. For this specific design I decided to go for a double trumpet interchange. Trumpet interchanges are usually three-way interchanges, so I've done a trumpet interchange leading traffic to the northern part of the highway and another trumpet interchange at an inverted state leading traffic to the other part of the highway. So on the upper side of the highway I am going to have my generic industry, and on the bottom side of the highway I am planning on having a fishing industry, which came out with a new DLC, Sunset Harbor, and I want to try it out. You should be seeing now 6 segments of road that go across the highway. The 2 top segments lead and bring traffic from the top of the highway. The bottom 2 segments lead and take traffic out of the bottom part of the highway, and the 2 middle segments are just going to connect the 2 sides of the layout and are not going to connect to the highway at all. I then decided to start planning out the industrial district, and I've started by trying to figure out the placement of the cargo station. Initially I thought it would be cool to have it as close to the interchange as possible, but I decided to scoot it a bit over to the middle of the map so that I could zone some industrial behind the station itself, because cargo stations have a radial, they have a radius area of effect, and by zoning some industry behind the actual cargo station I am going to be able to increase the attractiveness for industries of a lot more buildings. This is very important because I want to have a lot of level 3 industrial buildings, as they are the ones that provide the highest return. This district is going to be dedicated exclusively for generic industry, so I'm not going to have any specialized industry such as oil or forestry. And I'm not gonna keep it too big because industry can cause a lot of traffic issues in our city, and also because it's not really necessary. A full-sized, highly educated city can live exclusively with office buildings, so it's possible that you can create a functional city without any yellow industry at all. But it's good to have a bit of yellow industry so that your commercial zones don't have to import all of the finished goods. It helps your income if you are able to produce some of those goods locally. When connecting the highway to the layout itself, there's a lot of things that I have to keep in mind. First and foremost, I am building right on top of an area where I want my rail tracks to be. So I need to turn it all into elevated highways. And I also need to think about how I can connect the highway to the layout without causing too much traffic interference. I figured out that the best option was to have an on and off ramp connecting to different sides of the layout, each one with their own roundabout, and this way I think we'll be able to disperse traffic a bit better and not cause a lot of stress in our roads. In this area I'm also going to place my power stations. This type of service can be placed alongside the industry without suffering the consequences of the noise pollution and also the ground pollution. And I also think we can put our recycling centers here as well. This is something that I am trying to figure out yet, because garbage trucks need to have an easy access to the city so that they can get to the affected zones as quickly as possible. Placing these buildings right on the edge of the map may not be the best option. But I think we can start with this strategy, and later on, if we have the need to, we can always relocate them. The middle segments of the interchange are going to be dedicated for easy traffic flow between the generic industry and the fishing industry that is going to be placed on the bottom of the layout, so that trucks can bring raw fish to the generic industry to build final products for our commercial zones. Because we are not going to develop the layout for the fishing industry in this episode, I am not going to connect these segments yet. Then I moved on to make our rail network, and here I had to take into account several factors. To ease train traffic and avoid congestions in the future, I decided to keep each route into its individual track, and there are 3 routes that I must consider. First is the outside connection track. I need to make sure that the original international rail is preserved, the one that connects 2 different sides of the map. Then we have a line exclusive for the cargo train station for the generic industry that I have just placed. And then we will also need another route for the fishing industry. And all of these 3 routes must be connected between themselves. So the generic industry route must have an infrastructure that allows for easy flux of trains between the fishing industry and also the outside connections, both of them from both sides, and the same for the fishing industry route. So it must have an easy access to the generic industry so that it can transfer fish, and it also must be connected to both sides of the international route. I needed a lot of room for the massive amount of intersections that needed to be made, and the space right next to the interchange was perfect for it. In order to make the infrastructure a bit more interesting, I decided to go and sank the terrain a little bit, so there was a lot of terraforming in this timelapse. First with the interchange and now with the rail network. And then I simply built along according to the number of connections that were necessary. It's a bit difficult to explain you what each one of them do right now, but once we get back to the live gameplay, I'll make sure to explain it to you. The same thing with the road interchange. With the rail network out of the way, I then proceeded to continue the road layout for the generic industry. The last segment of the layout is going to be placed in between 2 segments of rail. Then I've built some overpasses that connect directly to the cargo station roundabout, so that factory can import raw materials and export finished goods as efficiently as possible. I then finished up the entire layout with some pathways to increase its walkability. This will be particularly useful for when we have a public transport network, so that with just a couple of metro stations, people can travel anywhere inside the industrial layout simply by walking. So every single corner of the industrial layout is going to be within walking distance of the metro stations. If not, we can simply add some customized bus routes that are specific and exclusive for this area. Right after recording, I then realized that I missed one main connection in my interchange, so I had to fix it as soon as possible before resuming the simulation. But yeah guys, that's pretty much it for the time-lapse. I understand that with the sped up footage may not be very perceptible what I've done and what exactly does every single segment of road and rail do, but don't worry because we are going back to the live footage and I'm going to explain how everything is supposed to work. Also, let me know thoughts about this time-lapse. I understand it was a bit longer than usual, but the feedback that I have received is that a lot of you guys enjoy these talkative time-lapses where I explain my thought process, so I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Anything I've missed with this layout, any suggestions, please make sure to leave them in the comment section down below. But anyway, let's go back to the live footage. Okay guys, after 3 hours of building I finally managed to come out with something that I'm satisfied with. This is the final result of our industrial layout. This took me about 400,000 simoleons to build, so if you want to replicate something like this in your city, make sure you have enough money. But anyway, let me explain you how these entire connections are supposed to work, because as you can see we have a lot of roads here. So let's assume the industry wants to import some raw materials. It can do so via the outside connection through this highway, where trucks will be able to leave into the city over here in this little road, come about at this junction and go all the way until here, where they will reach this roundabout and have easy access to the layout itself. If they are coming from the other side of the highway, for example from here, they can come all the way over here up until this junction, go through this on-ramp. Perhaps I should even activate the arrows so you can see. Go through this little off-ramp, come at about at this circular shape of the trumpet interchange and connect to this exact same connection and go to the exact same roundabout. If the industry wants to import raw fish from the fishing industry, which is going to be located at about this coastal area over here, it can do so via this connection, this road. So both of these roads are going to be dedicated to connect the fishing industry over here eventually, and also this layout. They will be able to do so over here and go up at about this junction here, and then I will have to somehow connect this road with the existing layout. To leave the layout, trucks will have to do so via another way, because I didn't want to overhaul this thing with trucks. So I've built a secondary roundabout dedicated to bring traffic outside of the layout, and they will simply have to do so via here, then up into this roundabout and go through the exact same connection. And at about this junction they can go to the right side, well, where they will be able to go and up into this side of the highway, where they will be able to eventually reach our city, and namely the commercial zones, or even continue and get out of the city itself. Or they can simply move forward through this little junction and connect to this part of the highway where they will be able to get off the city. In the long term, as I've mentioned, I will connect this road as well with this layout so that trucks can simply cross the highway to go to this part of the map. And then we have the exact same thing for the fishing industry, except that is in a symmetrical way. So trucks will be able to get into this layout by opting out of the highway right about over here at this junction and following this road. They will also have the chance of doing so via this connection as well, if they opt into this off-ramp and go through this trumpet connection here and eventually reach at the same stage. And to leave the city, they can do so by opting on this connection and go to the right side to get off of the city via this little segment of highway, or simply move forward and do so and leave the city through this highway as well. Regarding trains, Jesus Christ, okay, so this entire intersection and infrastructure may be a bit overkill. We might not have a high amount of cargo trains that justify this many amount of railroads, but I like to build something final that I wouldn't have to touch that soon. So I decided that I had to be prepared and build something that would be handling traffic the most efficient way possible. So as I've said during the time-lapse, during this time there are going to be 3 main train routes that must have easy access in between themselves. So the first one is the international route, so the cargo that comes from outside of the city and connects the outer edge of the map right about over here. This connection needs to be preserved, and in order to move from one corner of the city to the other, trains simply have to come at about over here, continue this junction through the left side, go across all of this thing, ignore this junction and keep moving forward, and eventually keep moving forward through this area as well. Now from this route, trains can go through different parts of the city, namely the generic industry and also the fishing industry. So to go to the fishing industry and coming from this side of the map, trains will simply have to hop off onto the left over here, come at about this little segment of rail, come at about this corner and connect to this segment where they will be able to keep moving until the fishing industry. Or they can simply keep moving forward up at about here, then once again up off the main track and go to the left, and just keep moving forward through here and eventually connect to the cargo station of the generic industry. If they keep moving forward, they will eventually connect again with the main rail connection and they will be able to leave the city. If international cargo trains, on the other hand, are coming from this side, they can simply hop onto the right over here to reach the generic industry, as I've said, or they can keep moving forward, and when they get at about this junction, they can get off the main track by coming to the left, go all the way over here, go into this loop, and eventually connect with this track that will lead them to the fishing industry. The generic industry and the fishing industry are going to be connected in a very simple way. So in order to deliver raw fish to the generic industry, fish trains simply have to keep moving through this track, come at about over here and ignore this junction, just keep moving forward, then connect here to the main track and eventually connect with the cargo station of the generic industry. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Will it turn out to be as efficient and good as I say it will be? I really have no idea. There's only one way to find out. But enough generic talk, I think it's time for us to test this layout. I'm really curious to see how it's all going to turn out and how traffic will flow through it. So what we can do before resuming the simulation is dezone all of this industry and place it in its appropriate spot. These are all level 1 buildings, so I don't think it's going to cause much of an impact. And I probably shouldn't do this, dezoning all the industry all of a sudden, but well, I'm really curious to see how this is going to turn out. So yeah, let's place some industrial buildings here. And let's zone this entire part of the layout for the time being. Okay, I think this is going to be enough to start off. Now let's move our recycling centers. And I think I'm gonna place them right about at the edge of the map. And unfortunately I will have to make a few adaptations, but that's no big deal. And now another thing that we gotta do is move our power stations as well. Because we have unlocked a couple more options, we don't have to use these ugly and inefficient coal power plants. We can use much better ones. And the one that I have in mind is actually this one, the solar power plant, which is one of the most efficient power plants in the game. So we are consuming about 230 megawatts, so I think I'm gonna place 3 of them just to be safe. And I'm gonna place them right here, in this little corner that I've built specifically for this type of service. So one here, one there, and another one here as well. Okay, look at that, cool. And now we can simply demolish these ugly ones. Something else that I will have to do is rework the water system of the city. Right now we have these water towers that are providing water and these inland water treatment plants that we'll have to remove because I need this area free. When I've started this city, I've built a water tower here because I wanted to build as little pipes as possible to avoid a high maintenance cost. What I didn't mention, however, is that the water pumping station is actually the most efficient one because it has a pumping capacity of 120, whereas the water tower only has a pumping capacity of 60,000. In the long term, this is actually the one that I will want to use. I have 6 water towers right now in the city, and because the water pumping station has twice the capacity than the water tower, I'll only need to place 3 of these things. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I am gonna go over here and I'm gonna place my water pumping facilities here. So I want them a bit spread apart. And I think we can put a secondary one as well, just for future-proofing the city. For sewage, what I'm using is the inland water treatment plants. What I will be using now is going to be the regular water treatment plants because we now have access to water. In the long term, what I want to be placing is going to be this, the eco-advanced inland water treatment plant. And I'm going to place them right about over here at this little area that we have available. We can even also add some tank reservoirs and make this a dedicated area to the water services. But for the time being, I am going to place the water treatment plant. Alrighty, now I think we can connect everything with power and water, delete all the buildings over here that are not necessary, and finally resume the simulation. Okay, it's finally time to resume the simulation. 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Okay, so the first buildings are now being constructed. First and foremost, let me see how's the power and water situation. We have a huge amount of power in surplus, so I think I am going to decrease the budget a little bit. So let's go all the way to, I don't know, 85%. And it also seems that factories decided to being constructed in this site, and here they have no power at all, so let's make some quick connections to fix that issue. I have disabled the cargo station for the time being because it's not going to be used while the factories are not yet constructed. What I want to do, however, is add this industrial sector their own fire station and also police station. So as something we can do, let's place a small one. These types of building are going to be more than enough to cover this entire area, so a fire station here and also a small police station as well. Okay, let's see how this whole area develops. Alright, so far so good. The interchange also seems to be handling traffic to the layout pretty well, but it's only in its initial stages, so this was pretty much predicted. These factories have a lack of workers because they need uneducated workers and the majority of our population is educated. So what I'm gonna do is finally enable the cargo terminal to force these buildings to upgrade. Okay, the layout is behaving very nicely. Perhaps I should find a way later on to make sure that the trucks don't slow down when they reach the roundabout. If this road over here gets too crowded, I can simply move the recycling centers to somewhere around here. Or connect them directly with these segments of road so that it takes off traffic out of these roundabouts. But for the time being, it's working very nicely, and we continue to have some demand for industrial. So I'm going to add some more factories here. So now that we're having a few demand for workers while we let the industry develop, I'm going to take advantage of this small rise in Okay, so this is what happens when you take off your eyes from the city itself. Let's try to take care of this by placing some more crematoriums. So I'm gonna put one here, And I'm also going to put one next to this area as well. Right here. Okay, perfect. And I can set this one to fill all over again. Now we'll just have to wait. But in the meanwhile, because we have some demand for residential, I am gonna zone this thing with some houses. Alright, I'm noticing a lot of traffic activity into the city, specifically in this part of the layout. So there are a few things that I want to do to make this more traffic efficient. I want to take the recycling centers, as you see if I go to the junctions panel. This road has a lot of garbage trucks that are coming into this part of the city, so what I want to do is take the recycling centers and put them somewhere around here. I think I also want to dezone some of these factories that are right next to this main entrance road to allow for an easier traffic distribution and flow. And there you go, much better. I think the only thing that we're missing now is finding a way to make sure that trucks don't slow down when they get into this roundabout. Because by slowing down, it makes sure that the highway is getting a bit clogged. So I think that's something we can fix. And let's go. Put it on 3 speed and see how traffic starts flowing. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. There goes the traffic. Now I just need to think of a way for garbage trucks to get into this layout, because for the time being they don't have that choice. Okay guys, but that's going to be it for today. A lot of progress in this video. We have completely remodeled and built a completely new industrial layout, which so far it's working very nicely, and I also think it looks great. It might need some work in the future, but for the time being it's working amazingly well. I've also let the simulation run for a little while now, and the death wave has completely subsided. So in the next episode we can play along in the city without worrying too much about it. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your feedback in the comment section down below, and I will see you again in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching guys, and as always, have fun!